that good music, yeah. I can't wait to come back to the city I love. Brotherly love, it's a Philly world.
Wow, this guy really loves Philly.
Brotherly love,
Hello, the Goblin. Thank you for the sub.
Look from over there. Even if it's just a dream, don't break your stare.
I want to tell you, baby, what you mean to me, and all those good times we shared, all the love that we have for each other. Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
So let your fire glow and your soul ignite, 'cause you are mine tonight.
Yeah.
The music knows it's almost time to start.
Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Oh, yeah. Baby. Give me some good loving. Yeah.
Oh yeah, give it to me.
I've been on the line long as I can remember. Been counting off the time till the end of this winter. And though we disconnected long ago, and the speaker sings that lonely tone, I just wanted you to know that I've been on the line.
I don't know what this playlist is or why I decided to put it on.
And though we disconnected
Hey, Carla, how you doing?
ago, and the speaker sings that lonely tone, I just wanted you to.
You're getting minimum effort Dottie today in terms of all of this. I'm in my sandwich shirt. My hair is a mess and I'm just going with it. I didn't even make my own coffee today. I bought coffee. Ah, thanks, Yes Queen. Sunday food day.
I've been looking for you, babe. I've been looking for you. No matter where I go, no matter what I do, I'm only looking for you.
I don't know if everybody signed up for the
Treat me
Motown vibes, but we're doing this today. What possessed me?
No matter where I go, no
Too much fire. Too much fire. Oh, there's only one candle left there. 1 second.
You're breathing fire and all your desire is pulling me into your waiting web. I fall into your eyes and in the crimson skies you take flight far over my head. So won't you please, oh please, come to me, my love. Our love will
All right, let's get this book open. Let's get going. My viewer count, which I never trust, is telling me that probably all my regulars are rolling up already. So if you're there, sound off. I know Carla and Yas Queen are here.
into each other. I think you understand. Your kisses
Which reminds me, Yas Queen, you weren't here for the last one live anyway. Did you get a chance to catch up? Because it was a lot.
you're burning through this man. Your kisses like fire. I'm ashes in your hand. Your kisses like fire that comes and comes.
It took like everything that I have to not just super spoil it for Jackie because I emailed her after. Yeah, lots of nipple talk. I emailed her after to discuss when she would be looking to come back to talk more with us. And I was like, we really liked it. It was like chapter 2 is the best one. I won't say why. It was a lot. Okay, so let's pick out our usual sort of feeling here. How about this? Yeah, no problem. It was just the first 2 chapters. Still worth going back to listen, but you know, I don't think there's going to be too much that you're confused by. Basically, her and Tamlin are back. Feyre and Tamlin are back at home, and they're both super traumatized and dealing with it in very different ways. So she's like getting sick every night and having terrible nightmares and feels like the world around her isn't real, and she's kind of dissociating a bit and all that fun stuff. And then he's just pretending like nothing ever happened and not letting her leave the house. And they're engaged and planning a wedding now, and she's planning it with this sexy hot priestess lady. Last night. Yeah. Yeah, the unofficial house arrest. Yep. He's saying it's like because it'll send a message to the people that's bad if anything happens to her or whatever. And then during their sexy conversation, this is maybe the only other relevant tidbit, and I will be upfront now that we talked about it, that this was part of what I got spoiled for me. So essentially when they get married, she was concerned or thought that she would gain the title or rank of High Lady, which according to Tamlin is not a thing. Now, when I got spoiled, it made it sound like he wasn't going to allow her to, like as though it were a title that was possible for her to have, and he was choosing to not give it to her, and to just keep her as a consort. But it, oh God, this dog. Okay, 1 second. Ow. She must sit on the lap. But yeah, as we as we found out during their sexy scene. Don't know why they had to talk about that while they were getting intimate, but they did. And so essentially, that's not a rank. It doesn't exist. There's never been a high lady before. It's kind of like the same thing that happens with the British royal family, where it's like the queen and the queen's consort. Like Prince Philip never became king, right? So, and there's never been a female high being or whatever, I guess. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. Yes, let me think about your close friend's mother while your face is an inch from my hoo-ha. Exactly. Exactly, yes, Queen. I bet that's going to be something that comes up and be different. But I don't know how or what or any of that. None of the specifics, just that it was a point of discussion at an inappropriate moment and therefore will be important. But like, she specifically started to talk about Lucian's mom, and Tamlin was like, don't say his name while we're doing this. And I was like, yeah, that's fair enough.
Driving far from where you are. I just listen, you raving. I don't
All right.
understand.
So I think we'll just jump right into chapter 3. Moderately based. Oh, here's the other thing I'm going to let you guys in on. So, I've done something that is very uncharacteristic of myself, and I have planned which chapters we're going to read. And in fact, I should have updated the title with the proper chapter thing, because usually when I read, I just read and sort of gauge how time is going and just decide if I want to keep going or not. But I have scheduled it out for us based on chapter lengths. So I looked it up and I sort of did a little bit of brain math, which is probably inaccurate, and scheduled the chapters. This was more so that I could give Jackie a date on when she could come back and we could talk. Less so for me, but I bet it's going to help me out. So today we're going to be reading 3 chapters up to chapter 6. And then we should be done part 1, which goes up to chapter 13 on our March 20th. Reading, so basically next week. So we'll read 7 to 10 on Wednesday, and then next Sunday 11 to 13, and then the following Wednesday is when Jackie should be coming back on to have another talk for just a little bit. Potential for Lexi to join us too, maybe. We will see. That of course does depend on a lot of things for her, since you know, baby. But yeah. Have some guests. And I am slowly working out this tech thing too, just as another little inside baseball thingy. We took our ancient PC that usually is just connected to our TV from when we want to watch stuff that we can't stream direct or whatever, which is almost nothing now. But this PC is from, like, I want to say 2017, maybe older. I don't know, it's old as shit. But it still works, and we brought it over here and I've hooked it into my setup. So like the audio feed you're getting right now is from my PC, but we're not hearing the same input because I've also got it open on like a screen share thing over here for me, so I can edit my up and down bit. It's a little complicated and I don't know how well it's working, but it basically means that I can have a guest on again and not have it be as chaotic as last time, or as much of a mess, because it was a mess. And embarrassing for me. Although I'm sure nobody actually cared. I cared. Once again, I will just point out for those that missed it that there are 69 chapters in the book. When I realized that last week, I liked it a lot. I still think it's funny because it's the funny sex number. And despite the snow behind me, I put springtime flowers up. So we're very springtime. We're very spring court in here right now. So we're gonna manifest spring. Even my bird of paradise back there is starting to put out a great big old leaf, and it's ready too. So we're all ready. So now, without further ado, let's start in on chapter 3. Get the microphone a little closer to myself here. Oh, nice, Carla. I wish I could open a window here. I just assumed it was one of the warm states. I just took it. Okay. Chapter 3. Tamlin's guilt must have hit him hard, because although he was gone the next day, Lucian was waiting with an offer to inspect the progress on the nearby village. I hadn't visited in well over a month. I couldn't remember the last time I'd even left the grounds. A few of the villagers had been invited to our winter solstice celebrations, but I'd barely managed to do more than greet them, thanks to the size of the crowd. The horses were already saddled outside the front doors of the stables, and I counted the sentries by the distant gates, 4, on either side of the house, 2 at each corner, and the ones now by the garden, through which I'd just exited, 2. Though none spoke, their eyes pressed on me. Lucian made to mount his dapple-gray mare, but I cut off his path. "A tumble off your damn horse?" I hissed, shoving his shoulder. Lucian actually staggered back, the mare nickering in alarm, and I blinked at my outstretched hand. I didn't let myself contemplate what the guards made of it, but he could say anything. I demanded, "Why did you lie about the Naga?" That's right, so Lucian is injured. That's what she's saying. And he had lied that he'd just fallen off his horse, and that was all it was. But the Naga had attacked, and Tim had let that slip. Lucian crossed his arms, his metal eye narrowing, and shook the red hair from his face. I had to look away for a moment. Amarantha's hair had been darker, and her face a creamy white, not at all like the sun-kissed gold of Lucian's skin. I studied the stables behind him instead. At least it was big, open, the stable hands now off in another wing. I usually had little issue with being inside, which was mostly whenever I was bored enough to visit the horses housed within. Plenty of space to move, to escape. The walls didn't feel too permanent. Not like the kitchens, which were too low, the walls too thick, the windows not big enough to climb through. Not like the study, with not enough natural light or easy exits. I had a long list in my head of what places I could and couldn't endure at the manor, ranked by precisely how much they made my body lock up and sweat. "I didn't lie," Lucian said tightly. "I technically did fall off my horse." He patted his mount's flank. "After one of them tackled me off her." Such a fairy way of thinking, of lying. "Why?" Lucian clamped his mouth shut. "Why?" He just twisted back to the patient mare. But I caught the expression on his face, the pity in his eye. I blurted, "Can we walk instead?" He slowly turned. "It's 3 miles. And you could run that in a few minutes. I'd like to see if I can keep up." His metal eye whirred, and I knew what he'd say before he opened his mouth. "Never mind," I said, heading for my white mare, a sweet-tempered beast, if not a bit lazy and spoiled. "That's like you." "That's like me. She's sweet, but she's lazy and spoiled." "Yes, you are." Yeah. Lucian didn't try to convince me otherwise, and kept quiet as we rode from the estate and onto the forest road. Spring, as always, was in full bloom, the breeze laden with lilac, the brush flanking the path rustling with life. No hint of the bogue, of the naga, of any of the creatures who had once cast such stillness over the wood. "Yeah, Carla, this is a Mimi." "No problem, Sote. Hi, nice to see you." Oh, which reminds me, yes, Queen, once again, you are away, but you are a sub, and you should see all the nice fun emotes that we've got. I said to him at last, I don't want your damn pity. It's not pity. Tamlin said I shouldn't tell you. He winced a bit. I'm not made of glass. If the Naga attacked you, I deserve to know. Tamlin is my High Lord. He gives an order, I follow it. You didn't have that mentality when you worked around his commands to send me to see the cereal. And I'd nearly died. I was desperate then. We all were. But now we need order, Feyre. We need rules and rankings and order. If we're going to stand a chance of rebuilding, so what he says goes. I am the first one the others look to. I set the example. Don't ask me to risk the stability of this court by pushing back. Not right now. He's giving you as much free rein as he can. I forced a steady breath to fill my too tight lungs. For all that you refuse to interact with Ianthe, you certainly sound a great deal like her. He hissed. You have no idea how hard it is for him to even let you off the estate grounds. He's under more pressure than you realize. I know exactly how much pressure he endures, and I didn't realize I'd become a prisoner. You're not... He clenched his jaw. That's not how it is, and you know it. He didn't have any trouble letting me hunt and wander on my own when I was a mere human, when the borders were far less safe. He didn't care for you the way he does now, and after what happened under the mountain, the words clanged in my head, along with my too tense muscles. He's terrified. Terrified of seeing you in his enemy's hands. And they know it too. They know all they have to do to own him would be to get a hold of you. You know what? You think I don't know that? But does he honestly expect me to spend the rest of my life in that manner, overseeing servants and wearing pretty clothes? Lucian watched this ever-young forest. Isn't that what all human women wish for? A handsome fairy lord to wed and shower them with riches for the rest of their lives? Yes. At least this one. Hi! Any rich, handsome people? Just looking to let me just stay at home all the time and never do anything? I'm down. I'm into that. I gripped the reins of my horse hard enough that she tossed her head. Good to know you're still a prick, Lucian. His metal eye narrowed. Tamlin is a High Lord. You will be his wife. There are traditions and expectations you must uphold. We must uphold, in order to present a solid front that is healed from Amarantha and willing to destroy any foes who try to take what is ours again. Ianthe had given me almost the same speech yesterday. The tithe is happening soon, he continued, shaking his head. The first he's called in since her curse. His cringe was barely perceptible. He gave our people 3 months to get their affairs in order, and he wanted to wait until the new year had started. But next month, he will demand the tithe. Ianthe told him it's time, and the people are ready. He waited, and I wanted to spit at him because I knew, he knew, that I didn't know what it was, and wanted me to admit to it. Tell me, I said flatly. Twice a year, until the summer and winter solstices, each member of the spring court, whether they're high fae or lesser fairy, must pay a tithe, dependent on their income and status. Oh, taxes. It's how we keep the estate running, how we pay for things like sentries and food and servants. In exchange, Tamlin protects them, rules them, helps them when he can. It's a give or take. This year, he pushed the tithe back by a month, just to grant them that extra time to gather funds to celebrate. But soon, emissaries from every group, village, or clan will be arriving to pay their tithes. As Tamlin's wife, you will be expected to sit with him, and if they can't pay, you will be expected to sit there while he metes out judgment. I don't know that word. I'm sorry. Well, he passes out judgment. I'm just subbing in a word. It can get ugly. I'll be keeping track of who does and doesn't show up, who doesn't pay. And afterward, if they fail to pay their tithe within the 3 days' grace, he will officially offer them. He'll be expected to hunt them down. The high priestesses themselves, Ianthe, grant him sacred hunting rights for this. Horrible. Brutal. I wanted to say it, but the look Lucian was giving me, I'd had enough of people judging me. So give him time, Feyre, Lucian said. Let's get through the wedding, then the tithe the next month, and then we can see about the rest. I'd given him time, I said. I can't stay cooped up in the house forever. He knows that. He doesn't say it, but he knows it. Trust me. You will forgive him if his family's own slaughter keeps him from being so liberal with your safety. He's lost those he cares for too many times. We all have. Every word was like fuel added to the simmering pit in my gut. I don't want to marry a High Lord. I just want to marry him. One doesn't exist without the other. He is what he is. He will always, always seek to protect you, whether you like it or not. Talk to him about it. Really talk to him, Feyre. You'll figure it out. Our gazes met. A muscle feathered in Lucian's jaw. Don't ask me to pick. But you're deliberately not telling me things. He is my High Lord. His word is law. We have this one chance, Feyre, to rebuild and make the world as it should be. I will not begin that new world by breaking his trust. Even if I what? His face paled, and he stroked a hand down the mare's cobweb-colored mane. I was forced to watch as my father butchered the female I loved. My brothers forced me to watch. My heart tightened for him, for the pain that haunted him. There was no magic spell, no miracle to bring her back. There were no gathered High Lords to resurrect her. I watched, and she died, and I will never forget that moment when I heard her heart stop beating. My eyes burned. Tamlin got what I didn't, Lucian said softly, his breathing ragged. We all heard your neck break, but you got to come back. And I doubt that he will ever forget that sound either. And he will do everything in his power to protect you from that danger again, even if it means keeping secrets, even if it means sticking to rules you don't like. In this, he will not bend. So don't ask him to. Not yet. I had no words in my head, my heart. Giving Tamlin time, letting him adjust, it was the least I could do. The clamor of construction overtook the chittering of forest birds long before we set foot in the village. Hammers on nails, people barking orders, livestock braying. We cleared the woods to find a village halfway toward being built. Pretty little buildings of stone and wood, makeshift structures over the supplies and livestock. The only things that seemed absolutely finished were the large well in the center of the town and what looked to be a tavern. Sometimes the normalcy of Prythian, the utter similarities between it and the mortal lands, still surprised me. I might as well have been in my own village back home. A much nicer, newer village, but the layout, the focal points, all the same. And I felt like just as much as an outsider when Lucian and I rode into the heart of the chaos and everyone paused their laboring or selling or milling about to look at us. At me. Like a ripple of silence, the sounds of activity died in even the farthest reaches of the village. Feyre Cursebreaker, someone whispered. Well, that was a new name. I was grateful for the long sleeves of my riding habit and the matching gloves I'd tugged on before we'd entered the village border. Lucian pulled up his mare to a high-fey male who looked like he was in charge of building a house bordering the well fountain. "We came to see if any help was needed," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Our services are yours for the day." The male blanched. "Gratitude, my lord, but none is needed." His eyes gobbled me up, widening. "The debt is paid." The sweat on my palms felt thicker, warmer. My mare stomped a hoof on the ruddy dirt street. "Please," Lucian said, bowing his head gracefully. "The effort to rebuild is our burden to share. It would be in our honor." The male shook his head. "The debt is paid." And so it went at every place we stopped in the village. Lucian dismounting, asking to help, and polite, reverent rejections. Within 20 minutes, we were already riding back into the shadows and rustle of the woods. "Did he let you take me today? So that I'd stop asking to help rebuild?" "No, I decided to take you myself. For that exact reason. They don't want or need your help. Your presence is a distraction and a reminder of what they went through." I flinched. "They weren't under the mountain, though. I recognized none of them." Lucian shuddered. "No, Amarantha had camps for them. The nobles and favored fairies were allowed to dwell under the mountain. But if the people of a court weren't working to bring in goods and food, they were locked in camps, in a network of tunnels beneath the mountain. Thousands of them, crammed into chambers and tunnels with no light, no air. For 50 years. No one ever said. It was forbidden to speak of it. Some of them went mad, started preying on the others when Amarantha forgot to order her guards to feed them. Some formed bands that prowled the camps and did..." He rubbed his brows with a thumb and forefinger. "They did horrible things. Right now, they're trying to remember what it is to be normal. How to live." Bile burned my throat. But this wedding, yes, perhaps it would be the start of that healing. Still, a blanket seemed to smother my senses, drowning out taste, sound, feeling. "I know you wanted to help," Lucian offered. "I'm sorry." So was I. The vastness of my now unending existence yawned open before me. I let it swallow me whole. That's chapter 3. Just in time, too, because the music ended. Let's do that one. Right, Carlo? Lucian can get it. Like, I like him. A lot. If I had to pick out of all these guys so far, Lucian's the best because he's done no crime. So far, the bar is not very high. But he's hot too, so good. Great, so let's update our chapter tracker, get to chapter 4. I really wish when I double-clicked on it, it would actually let me go to the edit thing. There we go. Yeah. So, I mean, the villagers clearly they don't want her help, which kind of makes sense. Like, what's she gonna do anyway? Like, she's not a construction worker. She's in a big fancy dress, like... Oh, okay, Carla. Yeah, nice to have you. Thanks for popping in. And yeah, catch up on the VOD later, and then we'll see you later in the week. But yeah, clearly they don't want her there. I'm not surprised. Like, I would think probably the best thing she could have done would be like to bring them something, but she didn't do that, so. What good are you? I don't know. We know she's not very smart. So. Unfortunately. Let's move on to chapter 4 here. A few days before the wedding ceremony, guests began arriving, and I was grateful that I'd never be High Lady, never be Tamlin's equal in responsibility and power. Right, yes, Queen, that's true. Like, your boss comes to try to help you and they don't even know how to do your job. Yeah. I've been in many situations like that. A small, forgotten part of me roared and screamed at that, but dinner after dinner, luncheons and picnics and hunts, I was introduced and passed around, and my face hurt from the smile I kept plastered there day and night. I began looking forward to the wedding, just knowing that once it was over, I wouldn't have to be pleasant or talk to anyone or do anything for a week, a month, a year. Tamlin endured it all, in that quiet, near feral way of his, and told me again and again that the parties were a way to introduce me to his court, to give his people something to celebrate. He assured me that he hated the gatherings as much as I did, and that Lucian was the only one who really enjoyed himself, but I caught Tamlin grinning sometimes. And truthfully, he deserved it, and earned it, and these people deserved it too. So I weathered it, clinging to Ianthe when Tamlin wasn't at my side, or, if they were together, letting the two of them lead conversations while I counted down the hours until everyone would leave. "You should head to bed," Ianthe said, both of us watching the assembled revelers packing the great hall. I'd spotted her by the open doors 30 minutes ago, and was grateful for the excuse to leave the gaggle of Tamlin's friends I'd been stuck talking to. Or not talking to. Either they outright stared at me, or they tried so damn hard to come up with common topics. Hunting mostly. Conversation usually stalled after 3 minutes. "I have another hour before I need to sleep," I said. Ianthe was in her usual pale robe, hood up, and that circlet of silver with its blue stone atop it. High fae males eyed her as they meandered past where we stood by the wood-paneled wall near the main doors, either from awe or lust, or perhaps both. Their gazes occasionally snagged on me. I knew the wide eyes had nothing to do with my bright green gown or pretty face, fairly bland compared to Ianthe's. I tried to ignore them. "Are you ready for tomorrow? Is there anything I can do for you?" Ianthe sipped from her glass of sparkling wine. The gown I wore tonight was a gift from her, actually. Springcourt green, she'd called it. Alice had merely lingered while I dressed, unnervingly silent, letting Ianthe claim her usual duties. "I'm fine." I'd already contemplated how pathetic it would be if I asked her to permanently stay after the wedding. If I revealed that I dreaded her leaving me to this court, these people, until Ninsar? A minor spring holiday to celebrate the end of seeding the fields and to pass out the first flower clippings of the season. Months and months from now. Even having her live at her own temple felt too removed. 2 males had circled past twice already, finally working... Two males that had circled past twice already finally worked up the courage to approach us. Her. I leaned against the wall, the wood digging into my back, as they flanked Ianthe. Handsome, in the way that most of them were handsome, armed with weapons that marked them as 2 of the high fae who guarded Tamlin's lands. Perhaps they even worked under Ianthe's father. "Priestess?" one said, bowing deep. By now, I'd become accustomed to people kissing her silver rings and beseeching her for prayers for themselves, their families, or their lovers. Ianthe received it all without that beautiful face shifting in the slightest. "Bron," she said, to the one on her left, brown-haired and tall. "And Heart," she said, to the one on her right. "Oh, hey, Katrisha. I think the only thing you missed was we finished chapter 3, and in that chapter, Lucian took her to the village, and basically all the people were like, we don't want you here. We don't need your help. And they went back. And just now, she's talking about meeting all the court people before the wedding. And how she hates it. To the one on the right, black-haired and built a bit more powerfully than his friend. She gave a coy, pretty tilt of her lips that I'd learned meant she was now on the hunt for nighttime companionship. Oh. I haven't seen you two troublemakers in a while. They parried with flirtatious comments until the two males began glancing my way. Oh, Ianthe said, hood shifting as she turned. Allow me to introduce Lady Feyre. She lowered her eyes, angling her head in a deep nod. Savior of Prithian.
We know,
Hart said quietly, bowing with his friend at the waist.
We were under the mountain with you.
I managed to incline my head a bit as they straightened.
Congratulations on tomorrow, Bronn said, grinning. A fitting end, eh?
A fitting end would have been me in a grave burning in hell. Jesus Christ, Feyre. Chill, please. Like a little, just a little. Sorry, that was just really intense and just out of kind of nowhere. It's like way out of left field. I'm depressed. The cauldron, Ianthe said, has blessed all of us with such a union. The males murmured their agreement, bowing their heads again. I ignored it.
I have to say, Bronn went on, that trial with the Midgard worm, brilliant. One of the most brilliant things I ever saw.
It was an effort not to push myself wholly flat against the wall, not to think about the reek of that mud, the gnashing of those flesh-shredding teeth bearing down upon me. Thank you. Shitworm.
Remember that time you covered yourself in shit? That was cool.
Like, that's basically what he just said to her. Jesus Christ. Oh, it sounded terrible, Ianthe said, stepping closer as she noted I was no longer wearing that bland smile. She put a hand on my arm. Such bravery is awe-inspiring. I was grateful, so pathetically grateful, for the steadying touch, for the squeeze. I knew then that she'd inspire hordes of young Fae females to join her order, not for worshipping their mother and cauldron, but to learn how she lived, how she could shine so brightly and love herself, move from male to male to male as if they were dishes at a banquet. We missed the hunt the other day, Hart said casually, so we haven't had a chance to see your talents up close. But I think the High Lord will be stationing us near the estate next month. It'd be an honor to ride with you. Tamlin wouldn't allow me out with them in 1,000 years, and I had no desire to tell them that I had no interest in ever using a bow and arrow again, or hunting anything at all. The hunt I'd been dragged on 2 days ago had almost been too much. Even with everyone watching me, I hadn't drawn an arrow. They were still waiting for a reply, so I said, the honor would be mine. Does my father have you two on duty tomorrow, or will you be attending the ceremony? Ianthe said, putting a distracting hand on Bronn's arm. Precisely why I sought her out at events. Bronn answered her, but Hart's eyes lingered on me, on my crossed arms, on my tattooed fingers. He said, have you heard from the High Lord at all? Ianthe stiffened, and Bronn immediately cut his gaze toward my inked flesh. No, I said, holding Hart's gaze. He's probably running scared now that Tamlin's got his powers back.
Then you don't know Rasan very well at all.
Hart blinked, and even Ianthe kept silent. It was probably the most assertive thing I'd said to anyone during these parties.
Well, we'll take care of him if need be, Hart said, shifting on his feet as I continued to hold his gaze, not bothering to soften my expression. Ianthe said to me, "The high priestesses are taking care of it. We will not allow our savior to be treated so ill." I schooled my face into neutrality. Was that why Tamlin had initially sought out Ianthe? To make an alliance? My chest tightened a bit. I turned to her. "I'm going up. Tell Tamlin I'll see him tomorrow." Tomorrow, because tonight, Ianthe had told me we'd spend apart, as dictated by their long-held traditions. Ianthe kissed my cheek, her hood shielding me from the room for a heartbeat. "I'm at your disposal, lady. Send word if you need anything." I wouldn't, but I nodded. As I slipped from the room, I peered toward the front, where Tamlin and Lucian were surrounded by a circle of high-fae males and females. Perhaps not as refined as some of the others, but they had the look of people who had been together a long time, fought at each other's sides. Tamlin's friends. He'd introduced me to them, and I'd immediately forgotten their names. I hadn't tried to learn them again. Tamlin tipped his head back and laughed, the others howling with him. I left before he could spot me, easing through the crowded halls until I was in the dim, empty upstairs of the residential wing. Alone in my bedroom, I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd truly laughed. The ceiling pushed down, the large, blunt spikes so hot I could see the heat rippling off them even from where I was chained to the floor. Chained because I was illiterate and couldn't read the riddle written on the wall, and Amarantha was glad to let me be impaled. Closer and closer. There was no one coming to save me from this horrible death. It'd hurt. It'd hurt and be slow, and I'd cry. I might even cry for my mother, who had never cared for me anyway. I might beg her to save me. My limbs flailed as I shot upright in bed, yanking against invisible chains. I would have lurched from the bathing room had my legs and arms not shook so badly, and I'd been able to breathe. Breathe. I scanned the bedroom, shuddering. Real. This was real. The horrors, those were nightmares. I was out. I was alive. I was safe. A night breeze floated through the open windows, ruffling my hair, drying the cold sweat on me. The dark sky beckoned, the stars so dim and small, like speckles of frost. Braun had sounded as if watching my encounter with the Midgard worm was a sporting match, as if I hadn't been one mistake away from being devoured whole and my bones spat out. Savior and jester, apparently. I stumbled to the open window and pushed it wider, clearing my view of the star-flecked darkness. I rested my head against the wall, savoring the cool stones. In a few hours, I'd be married. I'd have my happy ending, whether I deserved it or not. But this land, these people, they would have their happy ending, too. The first few steps toward healing, toward peace, and the things would be fine. Then I'd be fine. I really truly hated my wedding gown. It was a monstrosity of tulle and chiffon and gossamer, so unlike the loose gowns I usually wore. The bodice fitted, the neckline curved to plump my breasts, and the skirts were a sparkling tent, practically floating in the balmy spring air. No wonder Tamlin had laughed. Even Alice, as she dressed me, had hummed to herself, but said nothing. Most likely because Ianthe had personally selected the gown to complement whatever tale she'd weave today. The legend she'd proclaim to the world. I might have dealt with it all if it weren't for the puffy capped sleeves, so big I could almost see them glinting from the periphery of my vision. My hair had been curled, half up, half down, entwined with pearls and jewels, and the cauldron knew what. And it had taken all of my self-control to keep from cringing at the mirror before descending the sweeping stairs into the main hall. My dress hissed and swished with each step. That sounds like a whole lot of dress. I don't know. Beyond the shut patio doors, where I paused, The garden had been bedecked in ribbons and lanterns in shades of cream, blush, and sky blue. 300 chairs were assembled in the largest courtyard, each seat occupied by Tamlin's court. I'd make my way down the main aisle, enduring their stares, before I reached the dais at the other end, where Tamlin would be waiting. Then Ianthe would sanction and bless our union right before sundown, as a representative of all 12 high priestesses. She'd hinted that they'd pushed to be present, but through whatever cunning, she'd managed to keep the other 11 away, either to claim the attention for herself, or to spare me from being hounded by the pack of them. I couldn't tell. Perhaps both. My mouth went paper dry as Alice fluffed out the sparkling train of my gown in the shadow of the garden doors. Silk and gossamer rustled and sighed, and I gripped the pale bouquet in my gloved hands, nearly snapping the stems. Elbow-length silk gloves, to hide the markings. Ianthe had delivered them herself this morning in a velvet-lined box. "Don't be nervous," Alice clucked, her tree-bark skin rich and flushed in the honey-gold evening light. I'm not," I rasped. "You're fidgeting like my youngest nephew during a haircut," she finished fussing over my dress, shooing away some servants who'd come to spy on me before the ceremony. I pretended I didn't see them, or the glittering sunset-gilded crowd seated in the courtyard ahead, and toyed with some invisible fleck of dust on my skirts. "You look beautiful," Alice said quietly. I was fairly certain her thoughts on the dress were the same as my own, but I believed her. "Thank you." "And you sound like you're going to your funeral." I plastered a grin on my face. Alice rolled her eyes, but she nudged me toward the doors as they opened on some immortal wind, lilting music streaming in. "It'll be over faster than you can blink," she promised, and gently pushed me into the last of the sunlight. 300 people rose to their feet and pivoted toward me. Not since my last trial had so many gathered to watch me, judge me. All in finery so similar to what they'd worn under the mountain. Their faces blurred, milded. Alice coughed from the shadows of the house, and I remembered to start walking, to look toward the dais. At Tamlin. The breath knocked from me, and it was an effort to keep going down the stairs, to keep my knees from buckling. He was resplendent in a tunic of green and gold, a crown of burnished laurel leaves gleaming on his head. He'd loosened the grip on his glamour, letting that immortal light and beauty shine through, for me. My vision narrowed on him, on my high lord, his wide eyes glistening as I stepped onto the soft grass, white rose petals scattered down it, and red ones, like drops of blood amongst the white. Red petals had been sprayed across the path ahead. I forced my gaze up to Tamlin, his shoulders back, head high. So unaware of the true extent of how broken and dark I was inside, how unfit I was to be clothed in white when my hands were so filthy. Everyone else was thinking it. They had to be. Every step was too fast, propelling me toward the dais and Tamlin, and toward Ianthe, clothed in dark blue robes tonight, beaming beneath that hood and silver crown. As if I were good, as if I hadn't murdered 2 of their kind. I was a murderer and a liar. A cluster of red petals loomed ahead, just like that fey youth's blood had pooled at my feet. 10 steps from the dais, at the edge of that splatter of red, I slowed, then stopped. Everyone was watching, exactly as they had when I nearly died, spectators to my torment. Tamlin extended a broad hand, brows narrowing slightly. My heart beat so fast, too fast. I was going to vomit. Right over those rose petals, right over the grass and ribbons trailing into the aisle from the chairs flanking it. And between my skin and bones, something thrummed and pounded, rising and pushing, lashing through my blood. So many eyes, too many eyes, pressed on me, witnesses to every crime I'd committed, every humiliation. I don't know why I'd even bothered to wear gloves, why I'd let Ianthe convince me. The fading sun was too hot, the garden too hedged in, as inescapable as the vow I was about to make, binding me to him forever, shackling him to my broken and weary soul. The thing inside me was roiling now, my body shaking with the building force of it as it hunted for a way out. Forever. I would never be better, never get free of myself, of that dungeon where I'd spent 3 months. Feyre, Tamlin said, his hand steady as he continued to reach for mine. The sun sank past the lip of the western garden wall. Shadows pooled, chilling the air. If I turned away, they'd start talking. But I couldn't make the last few steps. Couldn't. I was going to fall apart. Right there, right then. And they'd see precisely how ruined I was. Help me, help me, help me. I begged someone, anyone. Begged Lucian, standing in the front row, his metal eye fixed on me. Begged Dianthe, face serene and patient and lovely within that hood. Save me. Please save me. Get me out. End this. Tamlin took a step toward me, concern shading those eyes. I retreated a step. No. Tamlin's mouth tightened. The crowd murmured. Silk streamers laden with globes of gold fey light twinkled into life above and around us. Ianthe said smoothly, "Come, bride, and be joined with your true love. Come, bride, and let good triumph at last." Good. I was not good. I was nothing. And my soul, my eternal soul, was damned. I tried to get my traitorous lungs to draw air so I could voice the word. No. But I didn't have to say it. Thunder cracked behind me, as if 2 boulders had been hurled against each other. People screamed, falling back, a few vanishing outright as darkness erupted. I whirled, and through the night drifting away like smoke on a wind, I found Rhysand straightening the lapels of his black jacket. "Hello, Feyre, darling," he purred. Oh no. Exactly, Katrisha. She asked for no red. That was it. That was the only thing she asked for, was no red. So, that was chapter 6. So, Rhysand is here. I don't know if... There's a lot happening. I don't know. Like, I still don't like him, and I still don't want to be here. Okay. Yeah, that was such a dramatic end to that chapter. Would have been a good cliffhanger, but we didn't get very far in reading today, so we're gonna keep going. But wow. So clearly he could hear her begging, right? Like that's what was going on. And so he's there now to get her. And I mean, so here's the other thing I'm trying to work out is like, are her feelings on this entirely to do with her, or is she just realizing now that she isn't actually in love with Tamlin anymore? Or both? Because clearly there is some issue there with their being together that's not working for her, right? Which I do get. Like, I do understand why she'd feel that way. But anyway, let's go to chapter 5. See where this goes. Well, the concept of forever would freak
kind of anybody out. And that's why weddings are very stressful and intense things for people. And regardless of how you feel about the person you're marrying, you're probably going to have at least a moment where you're like, oh God, do I want this? Right? Most people have that moment. Or so I've heard. Not that I would know. Since we're bringing that up again. Not that I would know. And that's true also, Keydrisha. Everything about this wedding hasn't been about her, and she didn't really want it to be about her. And so she's going to feel very disconnected from it. She's not going to feel good about it. Like there's no way to, right? And because it's like a political thing. Yeah, she definitely needs time to heal and they aren't giving it to her. That is also correct. Like there are just so many layers of not good going on, right? That just hasn't been the right way. And, you know, I'm not saying that Tamlin's the wrong person for her. He might still be the right person for her, but he needs to take into account what's happened to her and try to, one, give her the time, and then two, if they're going to still have a wedding, like, let it be about her. Exactly, yes, Queen. It was also a very quick situation in terms of them deciding that they loved each other. The only thing that's like giving me pause on it is two things then I guess. It's like one, it's a book, so that kind of thing happens in books all the time. So we can suspend our disbelief for a little bit and believe that they do genuinely love each other after that short period. And then also just because she went through everything she went through specifically for him, and that was what got her through it, it makes me a little bit hesitant to just dismiss their relationship now. Because I would feel like even whether right or wrong, she would have some sort of reluctance to distance herself after all of that. Because like if she could get through all of what she went through, maintaining feelings for him, then I don't know. I'm not a therapist or a psychologist. I don't understand relationships, and I don't know. But that's just where my brain is going. It's like, you went through all that, girl. Like, hope you're making the right choice. I don't know. And I'm not judging her, I'm judging the author, I think, when I say that. Okay, let's get into chapter 5 here. I shouldn't have been surprised. Oh, hi, Curly Fry. You want me to sit up and get a drink of water? Okay, I don't have any water. I can drink coffee, which will dehydrate me more. Thank you. Posture check is important. I do slouch. Okay. I shouldn't have been surprised. Oh, thanks, Richard. It's not ranch, it's lunch. Although it's like a turkey sandwich, I think, on this shirt here. For a fictional deli called Joe's Deli. I got it. It's a little bit weird how I got this shirt. It was one of those things where it was like somebody reached out to me on Instagram and was like, if you wear my shirt in a post, then I'll give it to you for free. And I was like, okay, sure, that can't go wrong. So I was like, I'll take a free t-shirt. Like, I don't care. And so I got the shirt. Oh, if I had a ranch shirt after all the discourse, like, I don't even like ranch. Like, I am not a ranch. I'm not ranch white. I'm white, but I'm not ranch white. But I would wear it on stream for you guys if I had a ranch shirt. But no, this is, yeah, it was like one of those things where like somebody thought I was an influencer for 5 minutes and gave me a free shirt. And so I did. I took a picture in it and I posted it and I got a free shirt. But they were like this interesting, it was kind of cool, but also a little weird. And I can't even remember the company's name now. Is it on the thing? It's on T something. I don't know. I can tell you if anybody really cares. But it's like the t-shirt is a magazine. Like they send it to you and it like, you know, comes in a package with like a cover with somebody wearing the shirt and it looks like a magazine cover. And then folded inside it is the shirt. And then there's like a whole article written on the inside, on the back of the shirt. So you can kind of see it on the white ones on the back through. And I've never read the article that's on the inside of my t-shirt, but there's an article in there. And you subscribe to it monthly, and then you get a new one every month with the story and the shirt, which is kind of neat, but kind of weird. And it came from somewhere out in like Europe somewhere too. So it's like I would get it because I'm in Canada. It would take forever for it to get here. So by the time it showed up, the issue was like way out of date. So I got 2 of them. I got this one, and then I like let the subscription roll over just to see what the next one would be. Yeah, someone thought they were so smart. Yeah, or somebody's just gonna read the article on your shirt, and it's like I gotta take it off and hand it to you for you to do that. You have to like look in the neck and like down it to read it. But yeah, they thought they had an awesome idea. I don't know if they still do it. They probably do. It wasn't that long ago. It was like maybe a year and a half, almost 2 years ago now since it happened, since I got it. But yeah, this is just one of my lazy day shirts because it's kind of weird because it's got a big picture of a sandwich on it and they're demanding that you could have lunch. Or you can have lunch at Joe's Deli. You can have it. You can have lunch. It says it's best in the history of ever. Yeah, this is you can have lunch or you can have lunch! Exclamation point across my boobs. Which is also kind of funny because yes, a turkey sandwich, like one of these wet gravy covered, or you can have ranch. Roast turkey, like gravy covered sandwiches are like what my dad and my grandpa eat all the time. Like that's what they get when they go to like a deli or like a family restaurant or something like that. Like that's their go-to hot turkey sandwich. And so I was like, oh, I know exactly what that tastes like and what that, no thank you. And I like turkey. I just don't like the wet, plain sandwich bread situation going on there for me. It's not about it. The closest I get is when my mom makes her Thanksgiving turkey casserole, which is just all the Thanksgiving dinner stuff. So like the turkey and the gravy, and then if there's like vegetables like peas and carrots and that kind of thing, she'll sometimes put it in there, but not always. Sometimes it's just the turkey and the gravy and then the stuffing on top to like make the crust part. And I'll eat that post-holiday dinner situation, but my partner thinks it's gross. He hates it. He thinks it's disgusting. It's like this reheated gravy turkey stuffing mash thing that I'm eating. He's like, this is so gross. It's like gray. I'm like, no, it's not. It's fine. I know lots of people who like it. Yeah, like you could make it into like a 7-layer dip of Thanksgiving food if you wanted to like add more stuff in, yeah, but yeah, it's kind of like a Thanksgiving shepherd's pie sort of sitch. Yeah, like it's just something to do with all the leftovers, right? And then you just have it all in a pan and you just heat it up over the next few days. Yeah, I'm into it. I like it. But yeah, no, lunch t-shirt today. I have some cooler t-shirts that I'm really excited to show you guys, but they are currently sitting at the postal pickup place, and I just haven't had time to go get them. And I'm real mad about it because they're really funky and I'd like to share, and I don't want to. I can't really wear them to work, so they're pretty much wear on stream shirts. Because they got like skeletons on them. And I think one of them might even say something like, I hate working and doing my job, or something like that. If it doesn't, it gives that impression, so probably shouldn't wear that to work. But I got a Mothman sweater too in this order that I'm really excited to show off because it's pretty cool. So I'm gonna show off some cryptid stuff and some skeletons. Just live some goth fantasy life. That'd be fun. But they're sitting in the post office. I have to go get them. And the weather sucks, and I can't like just give my partner the authority to pick them up because it's something they need my signature for, so I have to go. And I'm like, it's t-shirts, just give them to him. So I don't have to go out of my way to go to this stupid postal pickup and go get them. And it's all because they came from the US, so my American friends, this is your country's fault. But I have to go and walk all the way to the Penguin pickup. Go pick up my package from the Penguin pickup. Hate it. Anyway. Chapter 5. We were left on a cliffhanger. Chapter 5. Okay. I shouldn't have been surprised. Not when Rassand liked to make a spectacle of everything, and found pissing off Tamlin to be an art form. But there he was, Rassand, High Lord of the Night Court, now stood beside me, darkness leaking from him like ink in water. He angled his head, his blue-black hair shifting with the movement, those violet eyes sparkling in the golden faylight as they fixed on Tamlin. As he held up a hand to where Tamlin and Lucian and their sentries had their swords half drawn, sizing up how to get me out of the way, how to bring him down. But at the lift of that hand, they froze. Ianthe, however, was backing away slowly, face drained of color. "What a pretty little wedding," Rassand said, stuffing his hands into his pockets, as those many swords remained in their sheaths. Why is this boy's hands always in his pockets? Get him out of there! Touching all up on yourself while you're threatening people. What are you doing? Although that is like classic, like moody boy move. Put your hands in your pockets. Be like, hey, whatever. I put my hands in my pockets a lot too, to be fair. Rhys looked me over slowly and clicked his tongue at my silk gloves. Whatever had been building beneath my skin went still and cold. "Get the hell out," growled Tamlin, stalking toward us, claws ripped from his knuckles. Rhys clicked his tongue again. "Oh, I don't think so. Not when I need to call in my bargain with Feyre, darling." My stomach hollowed out. No, not now. "You try to break the bargain, and you know what will happen," Rhys went on, chuckling a bit at the crowd still falling over themselves to get away from him. He jerked his chin toward me. "I gave you 3 months of freedom. You could at least look happy to see me." I was shaking too badly to say anything. Rhys's eyes flickered with distaste. The expression was gone when he faced Tamlin again. "I'll be taking her now." "Don't you dare," Tamlin snarled. Behind him, the dais was empty. Ianthe had vanished entirely, along with most of those in attendance. "Was I interrupting? I thought it was over." Rhys gave me a smile dripping with venom. He knew. Through that bond, through whichever magic was between us, he'd known I was about to say no.
At least Feyre seemed to think so. Tamlin snarled. Let us finish the ceremony. Your high priestess, Rhys said, seems to think it's over too. Tamlin stiffened as he looked over his shoulder to find the altar empty. When he faced us again, the claws had eased halfway back into his hands. Rhysand, I'm in no mood to bargain, Rhys said. Even though I could work it into my advantage, I'm sure. I jolted at the caress of his hand on my elbow. Let's go. I didn't move. Tamlin, I breathed. Tamlin took a single step toward me, his golden face turning sallow, but remained focused on Rhys. Name your price. Don't bother, Rhys crooned, linking elbows with me. Every spot of contact was abhorrent, unbearable. He'd take me back to the night court, the place Amarantha had supposedly modeled under the mountain after, full of depravity and torture and death. Tamlin, please. Such dramatics, Rhysand said, tugging me closer. But Tamlin didn't move, and those claws were wholly replaced by smooth skin. He fixed his gaze at Rhys, his lips pulling back in a snarl. If you hurt her... I know, Rhysand drawled. I'll return her in a week. No, Tamlin couldn't be making those kinds of threats, not when they meant he was letting me go. Even Lucien was gaping at Tamlin, his face white with fury and shock. Rhys released my elbow only to slip a hand around my waist, pressing me into his side as he whispered in my ear. Hold on. The darkness roared, a wind tearing me this way and that, the ground falling away beneath me, the world gone around me. Only Rhys remained, and I hated him as I clung to him. I hated him with my entire heart. Then the darkness vanished. I smelled jasmine first, then saw stars. A sea of stars flickering beyond glowing pillars of moonstone that framed the sweeping view of endless snow-capped mountains. Welcome to the night court, was all Rhys said. Welcome to night court. If only I knew something about night court. I'm sure there's a joke there. Damn it. I'd be kicking myself every time because I just feel like it should be funny and it's not. It's not funny. Nobody would even think it was funny if I did know something and I did make the joke. It wouldn't be funny. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever seen. Whatever building we were in had been perched atop one of the gray stone mountains. The hall around us was open to the elements. No windows to be found, just towering pillars of gossamer curtains and swaying in that jasmine-scented breeze. It must be some magic to keep the air warm in the dead of winter. Not to mention the altitude, or the snow coating the mountains. Mighty winds sending veils of it drifting off the peaks like wandering mist. Little seating, dining, and work areas dotted the hall, sectioned off with those curtains or lush plants or thick rugs scattered over the moonstone floor. Ooh, a moonstone floor. A few balls of light bobbed on the breeze, along with colored glass lanterns dangling from the arches of the ceiling. Not a scream, not a shout, not a plea to be heard. Behind me, a wall of white marble arose, broken occasionally by open doorways leading into dim stairwells. The rest of the night court had to be through there. No wonder I couldn't hear anyone screaming, if they were all inside. This is my private residence, Rhys said casually. His skin was darker than I'd remembered. Golden now, rather than pale. Pale from being locked under the mountain for 50 years. I scanned him, searching for any sign of the massive, membranous wings, the ones he'd admitted he loved flying with. But there was none. Just the male smirking at me. And that too familiar expression. How dare you? Rhys snorted. I certainly missed that look on your face.
He stalked closer, his movements feline, those violet eyes turning subdued, lethal.
You're welcome, you know.
For what? Reese paused less than a foot away, sliding his hands into his pockets. The night didn't seem to ripple from him here, and he appeared, despite his perfection, almost normal.
For saving you when you asked?
I stiffened. I didn't ask for anything. His stare dipped to my left hand. Reese gave no warning as he gripped my arm, snarling softly, and tore off the glove. His touch was like a brand, and I flinched, yielding a step. But he held firm until he'd gotten both gloves off.
I heard you begging someone, anyone to rescue you, to get you out. I heard you say no.
I didn't say anything. He turned my bare hand over, his hold tightening as he examined the eye he'd tattooed. He tapped the pupil, once, twice.
I heard it loud and clear.
I wrenched my hand away. Take me back, now. I didn't want to be stolen away. He shrugged.
What better time to take you here? Maybe Tamlin didn't notice you were about to reject him in front of his entire court. Maybe now you can simply blame it on me.
You're a bastard. You made it clear enough that I had reservations.
Such gratitude, as always.
I struggled to get down a single deep breath. What do you want from me?
Want? I want you to say thank you, first of all. Then I want you to take off that hideous dress. You look...
His mouth cut a cruel line.
You look exactly like the doe-eyed damsel he and that simpering priestess want you to be.
You don't know anything about me. Or us. Reese gave me a knowing smile.
Does Tamlin? Does he ever ask you why you hurl your guts up every night? Or why you can't go into certain rooms or see certain colors?
I froze. He might as well have stripped me naked. Get the hell out of my head. Tamlin had horrors of his own to endure, to face down.
Likewise.
He stalked a few steps away.
You think I enjoy being awoken every night by visions of you puking? You send everything right down that bond, and I don't appreciate having a front row seat when I'm trying to sleep.
Prick. Another chuckle. But I wouldn't ask about what he meant, about the bond between us. I wouldn't give him the satisfaction of looking curious.
As for what else I want from you,
He gestured to the house behind us.
I'll tell you tomorrow at breakfast. For now, clean yourself up. Rest.
That rage flickered in his eyes again at that dress. The hair.
Take the stairs on the right, one level down. Your room is the first door.
Not a dungeon cell? But Reese half turned, brows lifting.
You're not a prisoner, Feyre. You made a bargain, and I'm calling it in. You will be my guest here with the privileges of a member of my household. None of my subjects are going to touch you, hurt you, or so much as think ill of you here.
My tongue was dry and heavy as I said. And where might those subjects be?
Some dwell here, in the mountain beneath us.
He angled his head.
They're forbidden to set foot in this residence. They know they'd be signing their death warrant.
Signing their death warrant, sorry. His eyes met mine, stark and clear, as if he could sense the panic the shadows creeping in.
Amarantha wasn't very creative, he said, with quiet wrath. My court beneath this mountain has long been feared. and she chose to replicate it by violating the space of Prithian's sacred mountain. So yes, there's a court beneath this mountain. The court your Tamlin now expects me to be subjugating you to. I preside over it every now and then, but it mostly rules itself. When are you taking me there? If I had to go underground, had to see those kinds of horrors again, I'd beg him not to take me. I didn't care how pathetic it made me. I'd lost any sort of qualms about what lines I'd cross to survive. I'm not. He rolled his shoulders. This is my home, and the court beneath it is my occupation, as you mortals call it. I do not like for the two to overlap very often. My brows rose slightly. You mortals? Starlight danced along the planes of his face. Should I consider you something different? A challenge. I shoved away my irritation at the amusement again, tugging at the corners of his lips, and instead said, And the other denizens of your court? The night court territory was enormous, bigger than any other in Prithian, and all around us were those empty, snow-blasted mountains. No sign of towns, cities, or anything. Scattered throughout, dwelling as they wish, just as you are now free to roam where you wish. I wish to roam home. Reese laughed, finally sauntering toward the other end of the hall, which ended in a veranda open to the stars. I'm willing to accept your thanks at any time, you know. He called to me without looking back. Red exploded in my vision, and I couldn't breathe fast enough, couldn't think above the roar in my head. One heartbeat. I was staring after him. The next, I had my shoe in a hand. I hurled it at him with all my strength. All my considerable immortal strength. I barely saw my silk slipper as it flew through the air, fast as a shooting star, so fast that even a high lord couldn't detect it as it neared, and slammed into his head. Reese whirled, a hand rising to the back of his head, his eyes wide. I already had the other shoe in my hand. Reese's lips pulled back from his teeth. I dare you. Temper. He had to be in some mood today to let this temper show this much. Good. That made two of us. I flung my other shoe right at his head, as swift and hard as the first one. His hand snatched up, grabbing the shoe mere inches from his face. Reese hissed, and I lowered the shoe, his eyes meeting mine as the silk dissolved to glittering black dust in his fist. His fingers unfurled, the last of the sparkling ashes blowing into oblivion, and he surveyed my hand, my body, my face. Interesting, he murmured, and continued on his way. I debated tackling him and pummeling that face with my fists, but I wasn't stupid. I was in his home, on top of a mountain in the middle of absolutely nowhere, it seemed, and no one would be coming to rescue me. No one was even here to witness my screaming. So I turned toward the doorway he'd indicated, heading for the dim stairwell beyond. I nearly reached it, not daring to breathe too loudly, when a bright, amused female voice said behind me, far away, from where Reese had gone to the opposite end of the hall. So that went well. Reese's answering snarl sent my footsteps hurrying. Ooh, who is the lady? I went to meet this lady. I like she threw her shoe at him. That's funny. Deserves it. Deserves worse, in my opinion. My room was a dream. After scouring it for any sign of danger, after learning every exit and entrance and hiding place, I paused in the center to contemplate where, exactly, I'd be staying for the next week. Like the upstairs living area, its windows were open to the brutal world beyond. No glass, no shutters, and sheer amethyst curtains fluttered in that unnatural soft breeze. The large bed was a creamy white and ivory concoction, with pillows and blankets and throws for days, made more inviting by the twin golden lamps beside it. An armoire and dressing table occupied a wall, framed by those glassless windows. Across the room, a chamber with a porcelain sink and toilet lay beyond an arched wooden door. But the bath. Occupying the other half of the bedroom, my bathtub was actually a pool, hanging right off the mountain itself. A pool for soaking or enjoying myself. Its far edge seemed to disappear into nothing, the water flowing silently off the side and into the night beyond. A narrow ledge on the adjacent wall was lined with fat, guttering candles whose glow gilded the dark, glassy surface and wafting tendrils of steam. Open, airy, plush, and calm. This room was fit for an empress. With the marble floors, silks, velvets, and elegant details, only an empress could have afforded it. I tried not to think what Reese's chamber was like, if this was how he treated his guests. Guest, not prisoner. Well, the room proved it. I didn't bother barricading the door. Reese could likely fly in if he felt like it, and I'd seen him shatter a fairy's mind without so much as blinking. I doubted a bit of wood would keep out that horrible power. I again surveyed the room, my wedding gown hissing on the warm marble floors. I peered down at myself. You look ridiculous. Heat itched along my cheeks and neck. It didn't excuse what he'd done, even if he'd saved me, I choked on the word, from having to refuse Tamlin, having to explain. Slowly, I tugged the pins and baubles from my curled hair, piling them onto the dressing table. The sight was enough for me to grit my teeth, and I swept them into an empty drawer instead, slamming it shut so hard the mirror above the table rattled. I rubbed at my scalp, aching from the weight of the curls and prodding pins. This afternoon, I'd imagined Tamlin pulling them each from my hair, a kiss for every pin, but now I swallowed against the burning in my throat. Reese was the least of my concerns. Tamlin had seen the hesitation, but had he understood what I was about to say no? Had Ianthe? I had to tell him. Had to explain that there couldn't be a wedding, not for a while yet. Maybe I'd wait until the mating bond snapped into place, until I knew for sure it couldn't be some mistake, that I was worthy of him. Maybe wait until he, too, had faced the nightmare stalking him. Relaxed his grip on things a bit, on me. Even if I understood his need to protect, that fear of losing me, perhaps I should explain everything when I returned. But so many people had seen it, seen me hesitate. My lower lip trembled, and I began unbuttoning my gown, then tugged it off my shoulders. I let it slide to the ground in a sigh of silk and tulle and beading, a deflated souffle on the marble floor, and took a large step out of it. Even my undergarments were ridiculous. Frothy scraps of lace intended solely for Tamlin to admire and then tear into ribbons. I snatched up the gown, storming to the armoire and shoving it inside. Then I stripped off the undergarments and chucked them in as well. My tattoo was stark against the pile of white silk and lace. My breath came faster and faster. I didn't realize I was weeping until I grabbed the first bit of fabric within the armoire I could find, a set of turquoise nightclothes, and shoved my feet into the ankle-length pants, then pulled the short-sleeved matching shirt over my head. The hem was grazing the top of my navel. I couldn't care that it had to be some night court fashion. Didn't care that they were soft and warm. I climbed into that big, fluffy bed, the sheets smooth and welcoming, and could barely draw a breath steady enough to blow out the lamps on either side. But as soon as darkness enveloped the room, my sobs hit in full. Great, gasping pants that shuddered through me, flowing out the open windows and into the starry, snow-kissed night. Well, Katrisha, I imagine they were probably white. They were just lacy. So they're likely ivory underthings. Reese had been lying when he said I was to join him for breakfast. My old handmaidens from under the mountain appeared at the door I'd just passed on, and I might not have recognized the pretty dark-haired twins had they not acted like they knew me. I had never seen them as anything but shadows, their faces always concealed in impenetrable night. But here, or perhaps without Amarantha, they were fully corporeal. Nuala and Ceridwen were their names, and I wondered if they'd ever told me, if I had been too far gone under the mountain to even care. Their gentle knock hurled me awake, not that I'd slept much during the night. For a heartbeat, I wondered why my bed felt so much softer, why mountains flowed into the distance and not spring grasses and hills. And then it all poured back in, along with a throbbing, relentless headache. After the second, patient knock, followed by a muffled explanation through the door of who they were, I scrambled out of the bed to let them in. And after a miserably awkward greeting, they informed me that breakfast would be served in 30 minutes, and I was to bathe and dress. I didn't bother to ask if Reese was behind the last order, or if it was their recommendation based on how grim I no doubt looked, but they laid out some clothes on the bed before leaving me to wash in private. I was tempted to linger in the luxurious heat of the bathtub for the rest of the day, but a faint, endlessly amused tug cleaved through my headache. I knew that tug, had been called by it once before, in those hours after Amarantha's downfall. I ducked to my neck in the water, scanning the clear winter sky, the fierce wind whipping the snow off those nearby peaks. No sign of him, no pound of beating wings. But the tug yanked again in my mind, my gut, a summoning, like some servant's bell. Cursing him soundly, I scrubbed myself down and dressed in the clothes they'd left. And now, striding across the sunny upper level as I blindly followed the source of that insufferable tug, my magenta silk shoes near silent on the moonstone floors. I wanted to shred the clothes off me, if only for the fact they belonged to this place, to him. My high-waisted peach pants were peach pants. My high-waisted peach pants were loose and billowing, gathered at the ankles with velvet cuffs of bright gold. The long sleeves of the matching top were made of gossamer, also gathered at the wrists, and the top itself hung just to my navel, revealing a sliver of skin as I walked. Comfortable, easy to move in, to run. Feminine, exotic. Thin enough that, unless Rasan planned to torment me by casting me into the winter wasteland around us, I could assume I wasn't leaving the borders of whatever warming magic kept the palace so balmy. At least the tattoo, visible through the sheer sleeve, wouldn't be out of place here. But the clothes were still a part of this court, and no doubt part of some game he intended to play with me. At the very end of the upper level, a small glass table gleamed like quicksilver in the heart of a stone veranda, set with three chairs and laden with fruits, juices, pastries, and breakfast meats. And in one of those chairs, though Reese stared out at the sweeping view, the snowy mountains near blinding in the sunlight, I knew he'd sensed my arrival from the moment I cleared the stairwell and the other side of the hall. Maybe since I'd awoken, if that tug was any indication. I paused between the last two pillars, studying the High Lord lounging at the breakfast table and the view he surveyed. "I'm not a dog to be summoned," I said by way of greeting. Slowly, Reese looked over his shoulder. Those violet eyes were vibrant in the light, and I curled my fingers into fists as they swept from my head to my toes and back up again. He frowned at whatever he found lacking. "I didn't want you to get lost," he said blandly. My head throbbed, and I eyed the silver teapot steaming in the center of the table. A cup of tea. "I thought it'd always be dark here," I said, if only to not look quite as desperate for the life-giving tea so early in the morning. "We're one of the 3 solar courts," he said, motioning for me to sit with a graceful twist of the wrist. "Our nights are far more beautiful, and our sunsets and dawns are exquisite, but we do adhere to the laws of nature." I slid into the upholstered chair across from him, His tunic was unbuttoned at the neck, revealing a hint of the tan chest beneath. And did the other courts choose not to? The nature of the seasonal courts, he said, is linked to their high lords, whose magic and will keeps them in eternal spring or winter or fall or summer. It has always been like that, some sort of strange stagnation. But the solar courts, day, dawn, and night, are of a more symbolic nature. We might be powerful, but even we cannot alter the sun's path or strength. Tea? Just offers tea at the end. The sunlight danced along the curve of the silver teapot. I kept my eager nod to a restrained dip of my chin. But you will find, Rasan went on, pouring a cup for me, that our nights are more spectacular. So spectacular that some in my territory even awaken at sunset and go to bed at dawn just to live under the starlight. I splashed some milk in the tea, watching the light and dark eddy together. Why is it so warm in here when winter is in full blast out there? Magic. Obviously. I set down my teaspoon and sipped, nearly sighing at the rush of heat and smoky rich flavor. But why? Reese scanned the wind tearing through the peaks. You heat a house in the winter? Why shouldn't I heat this place as well? I'll admit I don't know why my predecessors built a palace fit for the summer court in the middle of a mountain range that's mildly warm at best. But who am I to question? I took a few more sips, that headache already lessening, and dared to scoop some fruit onto my plate from a glass bowl nearby. He watched every movement. Then he said quietly, "You've lost weight." What a shitty thing to say, dude. It's like the first time you're having a half normal conversation, you're just like, "You're less fat." You're prone to digging through my head whenever you please, I said, stabbing a piece of melon with my fork. I don't see why you're surprised by it. His gaze didn't lighten, though that smile again played about his sensuous mouth, no doubt his favorite mask. Only occasionally will I do that, and I can't help it if you send things down the bond. I contemplated refusing to ask as I had done last night, but how does it work? This bond that allows you to see into my head. He sipped from his own tea. Think of the bargain's bond as a bridge between us, and at either end is a door to our respective minds, a shield. My innate talents allow me to slip through the mental shields of anyone I wish, with or without that bridge, unless they're very, very strong, or have trained extensively to keep these shields tight. As a human, the gates to your mind were flung open for me to stroll through. As Fae, a little shrug. Sometimes you unwittingly have a shield up. Sometimes when emotion seems to be running strong, that shield vanishes. And sometimes when those shields are open, you might as well be standing at the gates to your mind, shouting your thoughts across the bridge to me. Sometimes I hear them, sometimes I don't. I scowled, clenching my fork harder. And how often do you just rifle through my mind when my shields are down? All amusement faded from his face. When I can't tell if your nightmares are real, threats, or imagined. When you're about to be married and you silently beg anyone to help you. When you drop your mental shields and unknowingly blast those things down the bridge. And to answer your question before you ask, yes, even with your shields up, I could get through them if I wished. You could train, though. Learn how to shield against someone like me. Even with the bond bridging our minds and my own abilities. I ignored the offer. Agreeing to do anything with him felt too permanent, too accepting of the bargain between us. What do you want with me? You said you'd tell me here, so tell me. Reese leaned back in his chair, folding powerful arms that even the fine clothes couldn't hide. For this week, I want you to learn how to read. Rude. Rude. Although helpful. Could be worse. Okay, guys, so we've got one more chapter. We've got chapter 6 for today. And then we'll be done. But what does everybody think of the Night Court? I actually think it sounds fucking gorgeous. And that has a lot to do with how good this writer is at describing scenery specifically. I really like it. I would live there. I just wish it was not snowy outside, but I imagine it's a little bit less so the rest of the year, because it is technically wintertime. Yeah, I do wonder about downstairs, but the palace sounds lovely. I love it. But hey, evil people can live in pretty places. And if I were him, I would have gotten her some different handmaidens. I don't know if I would have sent the same 2 girls back. That could be disturbing. But he did what he did. I will say that the clothing sounds vaguely like Aladdin inspired, and I don't know how I feel about that. It's a big blousy like Arabian Nights pants situation. Dressing like Princess Jasmine up in here. But hey. Let's get into chapter 6. Rasand had mocked me about it once. Had asked me while we were under the mountain if forcing me to learn how to read would be my personal idea of torture. No, thank you, I said, gripping my fork to keep from chucking it at his head. You're going to be a High Lord's wife, Reese said. You'll be expected to maintain your own correspondences, perhaps even give a speech or 2. And the Cauldron knows what else he and Ianthe will deem appropriate for you. Make menus for dinner parties, write thank you letters for all those wedding gifts, embroider sweet phrases on pillows. It's a necessary skill. And you know what? Why don't we throw in shielding while we're at it? Reading and shielding. Fortunately, you can practice them together. They are both necessary skills, I said through my teeth. But you are not going to teach me. What else are you going to do with yourself? Paint? How's that going these days, Feyre? What the hell does it even matter to you? It serves various purposes of mine, of course. What purposes? You'll have to agree to work with me to find out, I'm afraid. Something sharp poked into my hand. I'd folded the fork into a tangle of metal. When I set it down at the table, Reese chuckled. Interesting. You said that last night. Am I not allowed to say it twice? That's not what I was implying, and you know it. His gaze raked over me again, as if he could see beneath the peach fabric, through the skin, to the shredded soul beneath. Then it drifted to the mangled fork. Has anyone ever told you that you're rather strong for a high fae? Am I? I'll take that as a no. He popped a piece of melon into his mouth. Have you tested yourself against anyone? Why would I? I was enough of a wreck as it was. Because you were resurrected and reborn by the combined powers of the 7 High Lords. If I were you, I'd be curious to see if anything else transferred to me during that process. My blood chilled. Nothing else transferred to me. It'd just be rather interesting, he smirked at the word. If it did. It didn't, and I'm not going to learn to read or shield with you. Why? From spite? I thought you and I got past the under the mountain. Don't get me started on what you did to me under the mountain. Don't get me started on what he did to you. Oh my god. Ugh. Reese went still as I'd ever seen him. as still as the death now beckoning in those eyes. Then his chest began to move, faster and faster. Across the pillars, towering behind him, I could have sworn the shadow of great wings spread. He opened his mouth, leaning forward, and then stopped. Instantly, the shadows, the ragged breathing, the intensity were gone, the lazy grin returning.
We have company. We'll discuss this later.
No, we won't. But quick, light footsteps sounded down the hall, and then she appeared. If Rasan was the most beautiful male I'd ever seen, she was his female equivalent. Her bright golden hair was tied back in a casual braid, and the turquoise of her clothes, fashioned like my own, offset her sun-kissed skin, making her practically glow in the morning light. "Hello, hello," she chirped, her full lips parting in a dazzling smile as her rich brown eyes fixed on me. "Oh, it's RuPaul." "Hello, hello."
Farah, Reese said smoothly, meet my cousin, Morgan. Moore, meet the lovely, charming, and open-minded Farah.
I debated splashing my tea in his face, but Moore strode toward me. Each step was assured and steady, graceful and grounded. Merry but alert. Someone who didn't need weapons, or at least bother to sheath them at her side. "I've heard so much about you," she said. And I got to my feet, awkwardly jutting out my hand. I like her already. Yes, yay more, Katrusha. I like her already. She sounds lovely. She ignored it and grabbed me into a bone-crushing hug. She smelled like citrus and cinnamon. I tried to relax my taut muscles as she pulled away and grinned rather fiendishly. "You look like you were getting under Reese's skin," she said, strutting to her seat between us. "Good thing I came along, though I'd enjoy seeing Reese's balls nailed to the wall." "Ooh, saucy too." Reese slid incredulous eyes at her, his brows lifting. I hid the smile that tugged on my lips. "It's nice to meet you." "Liar," Moore said, pouring herself some tea and loading her plate. "You want nothing to do with us, do you? And Wicked Reese is making you sit here."
You're perky today, Moore,
Reese said. Moore's stunning eyes lifted to his Moore's stunning eyes lifted to her cousin's face. "Forgive me for being excited about having company for once."
You could be attending your own duties,
he said testily. I clamped my lips tighter together. I'd never seen Reese irked. "I needed a break, and you told me to come here whenever I liked. So what better time than now when you brought my new friend to finally meet me?" I'm getting big Alice energy. Big Alice Cullen energy right now. I blinked, realizing two things at once. One, she actually meant what she said. Two, hers was the female voice I'd heard speak last night, mocking Reese for our squabble. "So, that went well," she'd teased, as if there were any other alternative, any chance of pleasantness. Where he and I were concerned. Oh, instead of the future, she sees the truth. That's even better. A new fork had appeared beside my plate, and I picked it up, only to spear a piece of melon. "You two look nothing alike," I said at last.
Moore is my cousin in the loosest definition,
he said. She grinned at him, devouring slices of tomato and pale cheese. Ew.
but we were raised together. She's my only surviving family.
I didn't have the nerve to ask what happened to everyone else, or remind myself whose father was responsible for the lack of family at my own court.
And as my only remaining relative, Reese went on, Moore believes she is entitled to breeze in and out of my life if she sees fit.
So grumpy this morning, Moore said, plopping 2 muffins onto her plate. I didn't see you under the mountain, I found myself saying, hating those last 3 words more than anything. Oh, I wasn't there, she said. I was in...
Enough, Moore,
he said, his voice laced with quiet thunder. It was a trial in itself not to sit up at the interruption, not to study them too closely. Rasan set his napkin on the table and rose.
Moore will be here for the rest of the week, but by all means do not feel that you have to oblige her with your presence.
Moore stuck out her tongue at him. He rolled his eyes, the most human gesture I'd ever seen him make. He examined my plate.
Did you eat enough?
I nodded.
Good. Then let's go.
He inclined his head toward the pillars and swaying curtains behind them.
Your first lesson awaits.
Nora sliced one of the muffins in 2 in a steady sweep of her knife. The angle of her fingers, her wrist, indeed confirmed my suspicions that weapons weren't at all foreign to her. If he pisses you off, Feyre, feel free to shove him over the rail in the nearest balcony. Reese gave her a smooth, filthy gesture as he strode down the hall. Oh, he did a rude thing. Rude thing with his hands. I eased to my feet when he was a good distance ahead. Enjoy your breakfast. Whenever you want company, she said as I edged around the table, give a shout. She probably meant that literally. I merely nodded and trailed after the High Lord. I agreed to sit at the long wooden table in a curtained-off alcove only because he had a point. Not being able to read had almost cost me my life under the mountain. I'd be damned if I let it become a weakness again. His personal agenda or no. And as for shielding, I'd be a damned fool not to take up the offer to learn from him. The thought of anyone, especially Reese, sifting through the mess in my mind, taking information about the spring court, about the people I loved, I'd never allow it, not willingly. But it didn't make it any easier to endure Rasan's presence at the wooden table, or the stack of books piled atop it. I know my alphabet, I said sharply as he laid a piece of paper in front of me. I'm not that stupid. Girl. I twisted my fingers in my lap, then pinned my restless hands under my thighs.
I didn't say you were stupid, he said. I'm just trying to determine where we should begin.
I leaned back in the cushioned seat.
Since you refuse to tell me a thing about how much you know.
My face warmed. Can't you hire a tutor? He lifted a brow.
Is it that hard for you to even try in front of me?
You're a High Lord. Don't you have better things to do?
Of course, but none as enjoyable as seeing you squirm.
You're a real bastard, you know that? Reese huffed a laugh.
I've been called worse. In fact, I think you've called me worse.
He tapped the paper in front of him.
Read that.
A blur of letters. My throat tightened. I can't.
Try.
The sentence had been written in elegant, concise print. His writing, no doubt. I tried to open my mouth, but my spine locked up. What exactly is your stake in all this? You said you'd tell me if I worked with you.
I didn't specify when I'd tell you, Dick.
I peeled back from him as my lip curled. He shrugged.
Maybe I resent the idea of you letting those sycophants and warmongering fools in the spring court make you feel inadequate. Maybe I indeed enjoy seeing you squirm. Or maybe...
I get it. Reese snorted.
Try to read it, Feyre.
Prick. I snatched the paper to me, nearly ripping it in half in the process. I looked at the first word, sounding it out in my head. You. The next I figured out without a combination of my brain turned off there, like I can't read. The next I figured out with a combination of my silent pronunciation and logic. Look. Good, he murmured. I didn't ask for your approval. Race chuckled. Absolutely. It took me longer than I wanted to admit to figure that out. The next word was even worse. Jesus Christ. We'll get there, guys, but just no. Fucking Christ. I deigned to glance at him, brows raised.
Delicious,
he purred. My brows now knotted. I read the next two words, then wiped my face towards him. You look absolutely delicious today, Feyre. That's what you wrote? He leaned back in his seat. As our eyes met, sharp claws caressed my mind and his voice whispered inside my head.
It's true, isn't it?
What's he doing? What is this man doing? Stop. No. I jolted back, my chair groaning. Stop that! But those claws now dug in, and my entire body, my heart, my lungs, my blood yielded to its grip, utterly at his command as he said,
The fashion of the night court suits you.
He may just be having a giggle, but it's not a nice giggle. I couldn't move in my seat, couldn't even blink.
This is what happens when you leave your mental shields down. Someone with my sort of powers could slip inside, see what they want, and take your mind for themselves. Or they could shatter it. I'm currently standing on the threshold of your mind, but if I were to go deeper, all it would take would be half a thought from me, and who you are, your very self, would be wiped away.
Distantly, sweat slid down my temple.
You should be afraid. You should be afraid of this, and you should be thanking the God's damned cauldron that this past 3 months, no one with any sorts of gifts has run into you. Now shove me out.
I couldn't. Those claws were everywhere, digging into every thought, every piece of self. He pushed a little harder.
Shove me out. Deeper, deeper.
I didn't know where to begin. I blindly pushed and slammed myself into him, into those claws that were everywhere, as if I were a top loosed into a circle of mirrors. His laughter, low and soft, filled my mind, my ears.
That way, Feyre.
An answer, a little open path gleamed inside my mind. The road out. It'd take me forever to unhook each claw and shove the mass of his presence out that narrow opening. If I could wash it away, a wave of self, of me. To sweep all of him out. I didn't let him see the plan take form as I rallied myself into a cresting wave and struck. The claws loosened reluctantly. As if letting me win this round, he merely said, Good. My bones, my breath and blood, they were mine again. I slumped in my seat.
Not yet, he said. Shield, block me out so I can't get back in.
I already wanted to go somewhere quiet and sleep for a while. Claws at that outer layer of my mind stroking. I imagined a wall of adamant snapping down. Black as night and a foot thick. The claws retracted a breath before the wall sliced them in two. Reese was grinning. Very nice. Blunt, but nice. I couldn't help myself. I grabbed the piece of paper and shredding it in two, then four. You're a pig.
Oh, most definitely. But look at you.
You read that whole sentence, kicked me out of your mind,
and shielded.
Excellent work. Don't condescend to me.
I'm not. You're reading at a far higher level than I anticipated.
That burning returned to my cheeks. But mostly illiterate. At this point, it's about practice, spelling, and more practice. You could be reading novels by Ninsar, and if you keep adding to those shields, you might very well keep me out entirely by then, too. Ninsar. It'd be the first Tamlin and his court would celebrate in nearly 50 years. Amarantha had banned it on a whim, along with a few other small but beloved Fae holidays that she had deemed unnecessary. But Ninsar was months from now. Is it even possible to truly keep you out? Not likely, but who knows how deep that power goes. Keep practicing and we'll see what happens. And will I still be bound by this bargain at Ninsar too? Silence. I pushed. After what happened, I couldn't mention specifics on what had occurred under the mountain. What he'd done for me during the fight that Amarantha... What he'd done for me during the fight with Amarantha. What he'd done after. I think we can agree that I owe you nothing, and you owe me nothing. His gaze was unflinching. I blazed on. Isn't it enough that we're all free? I splayed my tattooed hand on the table. By the end, I thought you were different. Thought it was all a mask. But taking me away, keeping me here? I shook my head, unable to find the words vicious enough, clever enough to convince him to end this bargain. His eyes darkened. I'm not your enemy, Feyre. Tamlin says you are. I curled the fingers of my tattooed hand into a fist. Everyone else says you are. What do you think? He leaned back in his chair again, but his face was grave. You're doing a damned good job of making me agree with them. Liar, he purred. Did you even tell your friends about what I did to you under the mountain? So that comment at breakfast had gotten under his skin. I don't want to talk about anything related to that, with you or them. No, because it's so much easier to pretend it never happened and let them coddle you. I don't let them coddle me. They had you wrapped up like a present yesterday, like you were his reward. So? So? A flicker of rage, then it was gone. I'm ready to be taken home, I merely said. Where you'll be cloistered for the rest of your life, especially once you start punching out heirs. I can't wait to see what Ianthe does when she gets her hands on them. You don't seem to have a particularly high opinion of her. Something cold and predatory crept into his eyes. No, I can't say that I do. He pointed to a blank piece of paper. Start copying the alphabet until your letters are perfect, and every time you get through a round, lower and raise your shield, until that is second nature. I'll be back in an hour. What? Copy the alphabet until I heard what you said. Prick, 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 prick! Then get to work. Reese uncoiled to his feet. And at least have the decency to only call me a prick when your shields are back up. No, he should hear that. He vanished into a ripple of darkness before I realized that I'd let the wall of adamant fall again. Fade again. By the time Reese returned, my mind felt like a mud puddle. I'd spent the entire hour doing as I'd been ordered, though I'd flinched at every sound from the nearby stairwell. Quiet steps of servants, the flapping of sheets being changed, someone humming a beautiful and winding melody. And beyond that, the chatter of birds that dwelled in the unnatural warmth of the mountain or in the many potted citrus trees. No sign of my impending torment. No sentries, even, to monitor me. I might as well have had the entire place to myself. Which was good, as my attempts to lower and raise that mental shield often resulted in my face being twisted or strained or pinched.
Not bad, Reese said, peering over my shoulder.
He'd appeared moments before, a healthy distance away, and if I hadn't known better, I might have thought it was because he didn't want to startle me, as if he'd known about the time Tamlin had crept up behind me, and panic had hit me so hard I'd knocked him on his ass with a punch to his stomach. I'd blocked it out, the shock of Tam's face, how easy it had been to take him off his feet, the humiliation of having my stupid terror so out in the open. Reese scanned the pages I'd scribbled on, sorting through them, tracking my progress. Then a scrape of claws inside my mind that only sliced against black, glittering adamant. I threw my lingering will into that wall as the claws pushed, testing for weak spots.
Well, well,
Rasan purred, those metal claws withdrawing.
hopefully I'll be getting a good night's rest at last, if you can manage to keep the wall up while you sleep.
I dropped the shield, sent a word blasting down that mental bridge between us, and hauled the walls back up. Behind it, my mind wobbled like jelly. I needed a nap, desperately.
Prick I might be, but look at you. Maybe we'll get to have some fun with our lessons after all.
I was still scowling at Reese's muscled back as I kept a healthy 10 steps behind him while he led me through the halls of the main building. The sweeping mountains and blisteringly blue sky, the only witness to our silent trek. I was too drained to demand where we were now going, and he didn't bother explaining as he led me up, until we entered a round chamber at the top of a tower. A circular table of black stone occupied the center, while the largest stretch of uninterrupted gray stone wall was covered in a massive map of our world. It had been marked and flagged and pinned, for whatever reasons I couldn't tell, but my gaze drifted to the windows throughout the room, so many that it felt utterly exposed, breathable. The perfect home, I supposed, for a high lord blessed with wings. Reese stalked to the table, where there was another map spread, figurines dotting its surface, a map of Prithian and Hybern. Every court in our land had been marked, along with villages and cities and rivers and mountain passes. Every court, but the Night Court. The vast northern territory was utterly blank. Not even a mountain range had been etched in. Strange, likely part of some strategy I didn't understand. I found Rasan watching me, his raised brows enough to make me shut my mouth against the forming question.
Nothing to ask?
No. A feline smirk danced on his lips, but Reese jerked his chin toward the map on the wall.
What do you see?
Is this some sort of way of convincing me to embrace my reading lessons? Indeed, I couldn't decipher any of the writing, only the shapes of things. Like the wall, its massive line bisecting our world.
Tell me what you see.
A world divided in two.
And do you think it should remain that way?
I whipped my head toward him. My family... I halted the word. I should have known better than to admit to having a family, that I cared for them.
Your human family,
Reese finished.
Would be deeply impacted if the wall came down, wouldn't they? So close to its border. If they're lucky, they'll flee across the ocean before it happens.
Will it happen? Rasan didn't break my stare.
Maybe.
Why?
Because war is coming, Feyre.
And that's chapter 6. So yeah. Whew. Why he be so saucy? Why be saucy, man? Stop. Nope, not allowed. Sorry. Speaking of saucy, thank you, Kevin Saucy, for the follow. Yeah, I don't know. I still don't like him. Still don't trust him. Sorry. I'm getting the feeling, and like I said before, we're treating this book almost separate. And I think that because of
some sort of change or some choice that the author made between the first book and this book. The characters are almost entirely different. Like, they're not the same people. And I mean, they went through so much that, like, yeah, of course they're going to change. But, like, I feel like they're different. They're written differently. She's trying to, like, erase certain things that she set up in the last book. They're just different. They're just different. So, like, all the things that I think of that, like, made Feyre who she was, I don't really think apply so much anymore. Same with Tamlin, same with Rhysand. I'm not getting the same feelings about them, and there aren't as many of the same, like, hard, fast, like, character traits that were there before. They're gone. So if you agree with me, great. If you don't, you don't. That's fine. But this is just how I'm feeling right now. So anyway, we will be back on Wednesday with chapters 7 through 10. So that's Wednesday. And then we will have the final reading of part 1, chapters 11 to 13 on the Sunday. And then the week after that is the week when we'll have another little talk back with Jackie and maybe Lexi. And that'll be fun. And that'll be great. So yeah, I'm going to head out for the day. I hope you all enjoyed the reading. I definitely did. We got a lot of stuff. We got through a lot of story. So try and keep all that in your noggin. And I will talk to you all on Wednesday. Okay, bye.